What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Absolute Auction Podcast. I'm your host, Ryan Miner. With me is my buddies, Adam and Mark. Guys, what's going on?
How are you doing? Our last show of the season. Super excited.
Yeah, we're in full swing. Auctions are happening. I was just telling you guys off air that I'm in a fantasy football survivor league, which is like the TV show. You're playing and voting people out. But we started off the season with an auction, which is going on. It's proxy. It's 8 hour clock, and the biggest part of it is I'm not sleeping because the clock never turns off. So
Oh my God, that's
it's
horrible.
Oh, it's horrible. It's horrible. But you get great deals at like 4 a.m. So it's hard. It's hard not to, if you want to do it right, you gotta be up. But I might be in a dream state for this whole podcast. We'll find out.
I say you do look kind of tired. You look exhausted. I didn't want to say anything, but now it makes sense. So,
I started a new job this week, or added another job this week. So that might be on it too. But we're good. Everything's going well right now.
more fuel to the fire. We get to take a break from reality, have our own little fantasy talk here. As always, you guys can follow me on Twitter at Ryan underscore FFB. You can follow Adam at Always Auctions and follow Mark at Primetime Mock. Also, don't forget to follow the show at FF Auction Pod. Also, if you guys have any questions this week, going into next week up to kickoff, feel free to reach out to any of us. Even email us at absoluteauctionpod@gmail.com. So, guys, like Adam already said, final episode. Without you guys, you Adam, you Mark, this show wouldn't be possible, and it really wouldn't be possible without the 295 subscribers we have, the over 9,700 views we have, and over almost 2,000 hours of views that we've got out of that. So, and the interaction, the comments from all the listeners, the viewers, everything, it's been great. I've had nothing but fun.
Yeah, we've loved hearing from you. Go ahead, Adam.
Oh, I was just going to say, we've loved hearing from everyone. Everyone's been super supportive of the show. We truly appreciate it. This has been a lot of fun for all three of us, and we're really looking forward to bringing you guys some super exciting content, mid-season and going into next year. And we really can't thank you everyone enough.
And tonight,
it's been great.
Go ahead. Sorry.
No, it's been great just interacting with everybody that knows the show, and I got to the opportunity to help one of our listeners. He reached out to me just like you had said, because we will respond and we'll help you with your auction stuff. And I helped him kind of prep for his auction last week. I think his name was Nick. It's been a busy week, Nick. I hope it went well for you. But if you're still listening, we love that stuff, and it's been great getting to do that. And we thank every 229 of you, and hope that with this we can get a few more.
Yeah.
Yep, exactly. And just like last month, we're going to go over AAV this month. So, we're going to look at players who are, like I like to say, too high, too low, and just right. It's almost like the Three Little Pigs again. And it seemed like we had really good interaction with it last month, so we thought we'd touch base on it one more time right before most of you guys enter your last one of your drafts. So it's basically like a buy, sell, hold at cost is how I like to call it. Are you buying, are you selling it, or are you holding it at that cost? So to kick us off, we will go back to Adam. Too high, too low, or just right? We're gonna go on Romeo Doubs, man. I love to hear about it again.
Yeah, I think I still think kind of the vast majority of the fantasy community is still kind of sleeping a little bit on Packers wide receiver Romeo Doubs. Doubs is really locked into one of the Packers perimeter wide receivers, and he already has a great connection with Jordan Love. He's probably pretty unlikely to come off the field much at all, and the Packers should be one of the NFL's highest scoring offenses. And even though he doesn't kind of have the name recognition or the star power of some of the NFL's biggest names, Doubs really should provide a great weekly flex play and average probably around 10 or 11 fantasy points a week, just like he did last year. And with an AAV of just about $2, that's too low, in my opinion, and auction drafters should definitely be interested.
Absolutely, absolutely. Mark, I'll kick it off to you before I give my viewpoint. Do you agree with Adam on this about Romeo Doubs? You're on mute.
It's my MO. No, I really do love Dobbs' price. I'm actually hoping that it stays too low because it's just been an easy click at the end of drafts when you're looking for players to put $1 or $2 on. Yeah, I mean, really, the thing about the Packers wide receivers is there's a little bit of upside in all of them because there's still a lot of ambiguity in what's happening there. Dobbs has operated as their X for a lot of the time, so that would stand to reason that he'd still see a lot of snaps at least early in the season, unless he's been fully overtaken, which there's not really any news that's actually happened. So yeah, I think $2 again is easy, especially if you want a cheap piece of the Packers offense. For me, for a while it was Luke Musgrave. I think he's getting a little less steam now, so it's harder to click that button, especially since I have a good amount of him. But yeah, guys like Dobbs, I think it's a good bet. It's at the very least a safe bet, and one that you're also going to be confident if it doesn't work out, you can cut them pretty quickly.
Exactly. Because like you look at the AAV, which stands for average auction value, and you can find that over at fffaceoff.com, where Adam keeps up to date all season long, all summer long. And you see Jaden Reed up there as like the wide receiver one based on value for the Packers. Christian Watson, then it's Romeo Doubs. And so many people, even you, Adam, have even stated, you've even did research on looking at, amount of time on the field. And Doubs was actually on the field more than Reed most of the last season based on wide receiver formations. So even at $2, you can't go wrong. And say if he does flop, it's a $2 player. No big deal. It happens. That's basically, he's a bench player at that rate. So I agree. I mean, too low. He should definitely be a lot higher than that. But as long as it stays that low, I'm also buying it. Fantastic kickoff. Mark, I'm going to go back to you now. And he finally gets his wide receiver signed. Signed a 4-year, $136 million deal. How are we feeling about Dak Prescott now? Too high, too low, or just right?
So Dak Prescott is going for $8 in one QB, according to AAV. I'm going from July 20th, so we're about to start a training camp till now, and the drafts that we've had. So he's going for $8 there, one QB, and about $32 in super flex. I'm kind of putting that right at just right for me. So to be honest, like Dak's a good quarterback. Again, like you said, he's got CD back. He's got a second option in Ferguson right now, and then Brandon Cooks maybe a nice like third option if he can stay healthy. A little, and maybe a little help from some of the running backs out of the backfield. I think he'll have plenty. There is always a chance that he's not the most mobile, but years further removed from that bad leg injury, you might see him rush a little bit more, or just again he's a veteran now. He's going to put the team on his back. He's playing for his contract, so I think he could have a great year. But at the same time, he's not in that top tier of of all the other guys. So you're not spending that $12+ for a guy like Dak, because he's never going to go for that much. But you know what? You can always say, hey, right around $8, I can handle that. I can stomach that. And, I think it's a good price for Dak.
And according to Player Profile, he had 20.7 fantasy points per game, which was good enough for number 4 quarterback. So you're getting a QB1 so late right now, especially in one QB leagues when you're spending less than $10 on him. Absolute steal. So I don't mind that price either. And I think a lot of that price had to be inflated or deflated because of what everyone thought about CeeDee Lamb. Was CeeDee Lamb really ever going to sign? And I never doubted CeeDee Lamb 1 minute was not going to get signed. Jerry Jones is not that stupid. He's going to pay his stars. He wants to get butts in those seats. He wants to see these stars. What's he going to do? He's going to pay his guy, and he did. Sure, it's a lot later than we expected, but hey, Better late than never.
Mhm.
Adam, do you feel the same way about Dak Prescott? Is he too high, too low, or just right?
No, I think that's a great price, and like Mark kind of said it, like you just want to invest in the offense. Like I think Dallas is going to be another prolific scoring offense. They were, I think, what number one in the league last year. There's no reason to think that they're not going to be, tops again in the NFL. They're going to throw a ton. We know that already, and yeah, you're not paying a high premium for, you know, um, someone like a Mahomes or Hurts, but I think Dak can absolutely turn in another great season. He's got the weapons around him. They've got a great defense. Yeah, that sounds like a great price for Dak.
Right,
Yeah,
and no, just saying, Ryan, you were saying before that like you looking at that $8, it looks like a steal, and like that's the thing that I really love the most about it, because it does. I mean, it does feel like a steal when you land him for $8. I really feel like that. But when you look at the way quarterback is priced, especially in one QB, like it doesn't make any sense for that price to go any higher, really. Like it doesn't make any sense for anyone to bid more than that based on what the prices of quarterbacks are and just based on what comes like directly below Dak. So I think just at any time, especially like if you have a CD Lamb and you've spent a lot of money and you know what I mean, like that's a really nice way to grab a stack with Dak and CD. You save a little, you don't spend too much at quarterback, and that gives you again a really nice pairing to go into the season with.
Absolutely, absolutely, and we can't forget about the lovely Jake Ferguson either with that team. So, plenty of weapons there. Zeke Elliott's back. Could Dalvin Cook be there? Nah, I don't think so. I mean, they did release Royce Freeman today, so R.I.P. Royce Freeman.
I've got one dynasty league that I still have Dalvin Cook on.
Hey, you have to just in case.
I mean, this time of year anybody can get signed, and you know what? In 2 weeks we'll all be like, oh, I gotta get him on my roster. So like who knows? It could be Dalvin Cook. I don't think it is, but it could be.
Yeah, who knows? I mean, there's plenty of other running backs out the shoe that got released today, so it's almost like wait and see. Maybe it would just be one of these guys that got released that we didn't think was going to get released, and next thing you know, he's a Dallas Cowboy and he's putting up RB2 numbers. Oh, which brings me to a running back that I loved a couple of years ago. Thought I loved him last year. Was actually in love with him this year at the beginning of the season when he signed. But now I don't know what I'm feeling about him, and that's Josh Jacobs. He had the stellar season a couple of years ago for the Raiders. Last year kind of flopped. Yes, the injury bug hit him, and Zamir White was the guy there. But now Josh Jacobs goes to Green Bay Packers. No more Aaron Jones. But I feel like we're starting to get to the point where we're still living on that hype of him, what he did a couple years ago when he was just dominant, the RB1. To me, as of right now, Josh Jacobs is too high. In one QB, he's $33. In Superflex, he's $27. It might not sound like a lot, but that's the RB11 in AAV cost. And to me, I just don't see him returning back end RB1 numbers. I can see him more as a mid to back end RB2, which is what I feel like he did most of the season last season, anyways. Because if without that volume, he can't get it. And if Jordan loves to be a passer more, does Josh Jacobs really get that volume? I don't know how to really feel it. Like it's just the hype. I feel like is faded on me. So he was one player I've definitely lost a lot of hope in right now, and especially with this cost, I'm out. Adam, being the homer of the Green Bay Packers, I'm gonna kick this one off to you. Am I wrong on Josh Jacobs saying he's too high?
Well, the only pushback that I will offer is that it was just announced today that A.J. Dillon, their backup, is going to be out for the whole year, which I think does open up a few more opportunities for Jacobs. Pretty much, Marshawn Lloyd, their third round draft pick, he's going to be out, I think, for at least like 3 or 4 games. I think he's starting on the PUP list. So pretty much the only thing they have behind Jacobs is Emmanuel Wilson, who did look pretty good in the preseason. But with A.J. Dillon out, Marshawn Lloyd out, I think there will be more opportunities for Jacobs. So that's like the only pushback that I'll give in that regard.
Mark,
yeah, I'd agree that
doing?
I'd agree that opportunity is there for sure. So you know me, I'm not the zero, or I'm the zero running back, hero running back guy. But I will say that Josh Jacobs is an intriguing hero running back candidate, especially with this news early on. I might speculate on Marshawn Lloyd a little bit more as a guy you can throw in your IR, especially when you're auctioning for pretty cheap. If you have an IR spot, that's definitely worth looking at. So the answer is like yes and no, right? Because my answer, no, it really is for me. Because like the answer is yes if I'm being regular old me again, taking one of the first 7 or 8 running backs that I like the most, and then being gone, or just being gone altogether. But if you're in a deeper league, or if you're if you're kind of looking to pay like a tier down sort of hero RB approach, I don't hate it. It's probably not for me most times, but I don't hate the idea of him even at $33. It's hard. You gotta kind of. It's a hard option, really. Let's just go with no. I think he's too high because I'm probably never going to draft him based on my strategy. Yeah. But I'm also not necessarily out on it if you're more of like a running back focused kind of player.
I mean, yeah, he played 13 games. He had 805 rushing yards, 6 total touchdowns, but he was finished with 13.9 fantasy points, which was good for number 18th overall. Just to think that he can jump that many spots up, in my opinion, I just don't see it happening. Give me anyone after him. Give me the players of like Joe Mixon. I'd rather have Joe Mixon over him. I'd rather even have Dave Montgomery over him, to be honest with you. I'm not going to lie on that one. That's how low I am on him. Actually, I'd even possibly take DeAndre Swift. So, I'm almost going around him all the way around in general of the NFC North. And
that's the argument, really. Like, there are a lot of players like right down below him, like James Conner. I love James Conner. Aaron Jones, I love Aaron Jones, and they're all going to go like considerably cheaper. So that's where the problem lies. Like, I don't think in a vacuum, I hate saying that, but like in a vacuum, I think the price is not necessarily bad. But when you look at, again, like the running back paradox is the supply and demand issue. Like, there's not enough supply to meet the demand of like the elite tier running back. But there are still good ones, there are still good ones late, that you can use to say, if I'm going to punt it, I can find somebody. So yeah, that's why that's why I end up going mid RB sometimes, right? That's what we had going.
Mid RB was a fun one we did in our mock draft. So yeah, if you can go mid RB and build on around wide receiver in PPR leagues, well worth it. Adam, you almost have the same feeling on this guy as I did last time. But you know what? We're gonna go from Josh Jacobs. I'm gonna kick it over to you with Josh Allen. Are we too high, too low, or just right on Josh Allen?
Yeah, I think we're too high on Josh Allen, and he's got a current AAV of $50 in Superflex. I'm going to focus on Superflex for Josh Allen for just a moment, and in 3 of the last 4 years, Allen has finished as the QB1, 3 out of the last 4 years. And in 2022, the year he didn't finish as the QB1, he's still finished as the QB2. So not bad. And no doubt that Allen has been just on a historic fantasy run. But those stats are incredibly hard to replicate year after year. And I think it's safe to assume that Buffalo's offense probably won't be quite as potent as it has been in previous years. But I do think, obviously, Allen has what it takes to finish as a top 5 fantasy quarterback. But I think paying, right around $50, possibly more, is just a bit overzealous. I think that I would rather draft, again, Superflex, someone like Anthony Richardson that you can get for nearly $10 less, or someone that I know that you really like, Ryan, Kyler Murray this year, and I do too, for almost $15 less than Josh Allen. So I think right now, I think Josh Allen is a little bit too high for my tastes.
Yes, just like last month, and he was my too high player too, and I felt the same exact way. And then you look at it like his stats from last season alone, like he went down in passing touchdowns. Yes, he had 29 passing touchdowns, which wasn't bad. But what really boosted his stats was the 15 rushing touchdowns on top of the 524 rushing yards he had. Mind you, that was the lowest he's had because previous years he had 776 and 763 rushing yards. But in those 2 seasons, 7 touchdowns, 6 touchdowns. So if he has an 8 touchdown drop, the passing touchdowns go down. Do we see him actually fall like out of the top 5 now? And that was my biggest fear, seeing Stephon Diggs go, seeing Gabriel Davis go, seeing that whole team kind of get like a whole new identity. Yeah, you have Dalton Kincaid, you have James Cook there, you have Keon Coleman coming in. You got a couple other players out there that are trying to make a statement for themselves, but there's no true like alpha wide receiver that stands out as of right now, as we go into week 1 and as we wrap up our drafts here. So I can see him definitely stepping back and coming back and trying to repeat as the QB1. I think the 4-year run was a lot of fun. I think it's over too. Mark, how you feel about him? I mean, I know you love Josh Allen a lot. You've been taking him in drafts that we've been doing. You've been willing to pay up for him. Are Adam and I just too high, or are you joining us on this?
I'm kind of in the spot where I think he's just right, and not that I don't take value in what you're saying, that like it's really hard to repeat as the quarterback one, but I also don't know if strategically it makes sense to lower his value based on that, if that makes, you know what I mean? So for me, I'm still willing for him to be that top tier guy, and in general, I like to, if I can, if it's not too expensive, I like to onslaught quarterback a lot in super flex drafts, because I know I'm not spending on a running back. So I will sometimes go onslaught quarterback, and I really, if there are people that don't want to spend that $50 or getting close to that $50 for any of those top 4, I'm willing to push it all the way up there anyway. So I'm really trying to usually get myself to be $48 bid, $49 bid, and then let it just go, or at least see what happens, right? But I don't see a problem with what you're saying. Like, there is no real clear target. I think fantasy industry and the betting circles are suspecting it's Dalton Kincaid, which could go any number of different ways. But yeah, I mean, the reason that I'm still willing to take him there is just like the other quarterbacks in that top tier is they have enough of a rushing floor or the touchdown upside to still keep them in that top 4. I don't mind him. I don't think he's the number 1 quarterback, though. I've had Mahomes as my number 1 quarterback pretty much the whole offseason either way. But again, I do think that they all merit value, because if we're really looking at, if we're thinking and equating this to like a 1 QB draft versus a super flex draft, the opportunity cost for those quarterbacks is the same as you are looking at Christian McCaffrey or CeeDee Lamb in a 1 QB draft. So if it's forcing people to push that 25 to be over that 25+%, like, I'm still okay with that.
All right.
So I see him as more just right. Just right for me. But it doesn't. Again, you can choose to and not to pursue that however you feel.
Yeah, I mean, it's all just, we're doing our best guessing on this, trying to figure out what we think based on what we see, and it's just, Adam, I just don't see that upside there anymore with the players they don't have, plus that rushing touchdown upside of 15 touchdowns. It's going to be hard to match. But Mark, we're going to kick it back over to you. And that receiver on Kansas City that I like a lot now. We had like the buzz of him being suspended was kind of pushed aside. We're not hearing much on him. But are we too high, too low, or just right here on Rashee Rice?
We're too low on Rashee Rice. So it's it's not looking like he's going to be suspended. So at this point, we've got to adjust. $10 is a little too low. He's made his way directly into my gold tier at this point, and he's in a spot where, like, if I'm doing a snake draft, I'm comfortable taking him sort of close to the early third round if I need to. Playing best ball and all that kind of stuff, you try and play the game of like how far can I let it fall, but in an auction, he's still being priced too low because he's either being forgotten about as like that guy that should be in the second round or third round, but we're all waiting on him in the fifth round. So that's a good way for you to say, yeah, I can nominate this guy. He's a gold tier player of mine, and I can get him for a discount because one, either the money's out of the room because no one's decided to nominate him, or two, because no one's decided to nominate him. Or the money's just left the room because all the players are gone and he's the one left. So I think he just sits in a really nice pocket right now, especially because his ADP is still on the lower side, or his AAV. So yeah, fire away. Like you're probably not going to be needing to get into a bidding war for Rashee Rice, but like I don't mind putting him in the mid-20s. Like if I can, and my build requires it, like everything I do is very much like flat numbers, but I have a whole bunch of people that I'm willing to pay for that, and we'll just see who approaches that number and who approaches it as slow as possible, and that's the one I'm looking for.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. Like he's way too low. Like, but now knowing that the suspension is kind of behind us, it's could be more of a 2025 thing we look at. Just look what he did alone. Like, he was top 12 in the target rate, 27.4% at number 12. Yards after catch, 654, number 3. Yards per route run, 2.52, number 10. And red zone targets, he had 22, which was number 7 in the league. On a 58.6%, which was low, number 79, snap share in 2023. And this is all based on Player Profiler giving me the stats. But just hearing those stats alone, at that cost, I don't even think we're too low. I think we're like plummeted. That's way too low. That's almost like bargain bin type of like buy here.
He's in the left for dead tier for no real apparent reason.
Yeah, and like if we're gonna like say you go stud RB, like if you get him as your wide receiver 1 at that price, I mean I'd feel comfortable with that if I were to get 2 stud running backs right off the bat.
Right.
Adam, do you agree with us about being too low on Rashee Rice? I mean, come on, can we go? Can it really go any lower than that?
We are way too low as an auction community on Rashee Rice, and I think Mark brings up a really good point about his, just where he falls and all the rankings. If you do your drafts online, like he's so low in ADP that usually what happens is there's been so much money that's already been left the room that when he does get nominated, it just deflates his value. Like you can get him for, $10 or $15 when he should probably be going for closer to 20 or 25. So if you are one of those people who like to save up a little bit of money towards the end of your draft and he gets nominated and you have a few extra dollars left over, yeah, you can get a great deal on him. And I think he's going to have like an Amon-Ra St. Brown like season. I think he's going to come out and just totally set the world on fire. And we are way too low on Rashee Rice. Absolutely.
Yeah, I should definitely update the banner of this of too low to way too low.
Yeah.
Because I feel like the 100% accurate. Mark nailed on that one. So
Yeah.
I can't go wrong with that. Good grab on that one, Mark. I like that one a lot. Especially at the prices.
I can't believe you. I mean, guys, I put my noms in like 20 minutes before the show started, and I was like surprised. I was like, wow, these are a lot. We still got some surprisingly good options out here. And I saw Rashee. I was like, oh, please, I'm putting him on. He was. I think he was my first one.
Yeah, I was like, oh man, because I was going through the list and I switched back and forth between 1 QB and Superflex to see which ones are truly valued at that point. And sometimes I'll just say, you know what, I don't like him valued here, but I like him valued there. So I try to move on where I can find a value where it's very similar to where I could say I don't like it here or I do like it here.
Mm-hmm.
And 1 QB Superflex. Which brings me to one of my favorite players I'm actually looking forward to drafting this year. And that's Kenneth Walker. Right now, he is $20 in one QB and $19 in Superflex, which is good for RB16, RB15 ranges. So to be too high, too low, or just right, to me, that's just right. But to be honest, I think it's going to be too low because this guy has the RB1 capabilities. I think this season, I see him breaking out this season. Yeah, he had over 1,000 total yards the last couple of seasons. The injury bug kind of hurt him last year a little bit. Zach Charbonnet kind of got to play a little bit more, but I could see Kenneth Walker definitely putting up RB1 numbers this season behind that offensive line and everything. This is the third-year breakout that I'm looking forward to. Super excited to get him, especially as my RB2. I'm all over him in all my drafts if I can get him right now. Excited as can be. Adam, am I too high, too low, or do you think I'm just right on Kenneth Walker?
No, I think Kenneth Walker's price is just right. He's one of those guys where you can really build a great team around him, especially if he is like your hero RB. If you don't want to spend like too much on it on a running back position, he's one of those guys where you can get like right in the middle and kind of nail your draft like really well. And Seattle's offense has looked really good this preseason. Like Geno Smith has just been airing it out. They've looked really good. I think their offensive line is going to be a little bit better this year. He has some pass catching ability, even with Charbonnet there. But he's going to definitely be their goal line back. And yeah, I think Ken Walker is priced just right.
Heck yeah, let's go, Mark. Can we make it a clean sweep?
Oh
Kenneth
yeah,
Walker.
I'll take that all day, 100%.
All day long. See, I did something right.
You act like we think you do everything wrong. We don't think that. No. No, hey, no. I mean, Kenneth Walker's a great option, and really, like, he's for me like one of those last. Again, if I'm looking at the tier 2 hero RB strategy, I think he's like one of those last ones you can find that are like really nice to anchor your team with and feel comfortable. And yeah, I mean, like, I think his dynasty value is pretty great right now too. Like, that's the running back market is just insane. So you always, when you see stuff like that's the real way to play the game, is like when you see all those inaccurate prices, that's when where you got to go, right? And I know we're saying he's just right here, but he's another one of those players, right, that he gets nominated a little too late, right? Mm-hmm. He's still probably in that tier, but the folks that are RB heavy have already done their damage probably. And so yeah, he's a great nomination candidate. He's a great target guy in those middle rounds of drafts. Especially if you have a little extra money, then maybe you wanted to have lying around. Like, I think he's like, just his price can't go any higher, really. Mm-hmm. is what it is, right? It's still just right because his price can't go any higher, and it's still going to be a deal.
Yeah, it's gonna be a steal. It's still the day, I feel like. All right, Adam, we're gonna kick it back to you, man. One of my favorite running backs that I think I've drafted in way too many leagues, so I kind of pushed myself off of him and gone more towards Kenneth Walker. And I can't knock it, but I'm jealous of it because you put him in, because I talked about him last month, and did I forget to put him in? I think I forgot to put him in. I did forget to put him in. That's okay.
Okay, I take back what I said before. Yeah, I was trying to be nice, but now this is a bridge too far, Ryan. Okay.
Yeah, I screwed up. Here we go. We're talking about Najee Harris, Adam. One of my favorite running backs I love this year. Adam, are we too high, too low, or just right on Najee Harris?
I think just like with Kenneth Walker, we are just right with Najee Harris. And again, I'm going to be focusing primarily on his Superflex AAV, which is about $11. And I think that is a very, very reasonable price for a player who projects as a really great RB2 for fantasy. And outside of, George Pickens and Pat Freiermuth, the Steelers really don't have too many offensive weapons. And I think, just like always, they always seem to do year after year, they're going to lean really heavily on the run game. Najee's going to catch a few passes each game and should be the Steelers' primary goal line back. And he's going to provide a nice weekly floor. And especially with his rookie contract up this year, I think the Steelers could really look to run him into the ground. And I think he's going to improve on his efficiency this year and average probably about 12 to 14 fantasy points a game. And for $11, that is just right.
Heck yeah, let's go, Mark.
I feel like this is another one that was copied almost from our last too high, too low. So people aren't listening apparently. Didn't you? I think Ryan had Najee last time, right?
Yeah. So last time I said he was too low.
Oh, you said he was too low?
Yeah.
Okay, so all right. Well, hey, we've made it, folks. We've arrived. So here we are. No, I think he's still pretty much in that just right category. Again, one of those players that that bubble of players that, again, everyone who wants a top tier running back, they've done their damage. They probably don't have the budget. The people that still need running backs, they're probably there because they don't want to spend a lot of money on running backs, so they're not going to go too high. But he's got, just as much opportunity as a guy like Kenneth Walker, even though Kenneth Walker is a better talent. I'll say that for sure. I still think that he's going in a good spot.
Yeah, volume is king. Volume is what we hope gets fantasy points for us. He fluttered a lot last season. He was basically a back end RB2, RB3 at best for most of the season. But other than that, he was an RB1 in his rookie year, RB19 his second year, or actually last 3 years, and then to see that fall from grace and now have a whole new offense there, a whole new coaching staff. This is I agree. This is the nice rebound. I still think he's too low, just because of the price you're getting him for. I mean, $11 compared to what he was at $14 last month. So I mean, he's already dropped $3 more.
And when you're thinking about a guy like Jaylen Warren with his hamstring injury, which there's when you have a hamstring injury, there's a more likelihood. I think Dr. Edwin Porras has said there's a greater likelihood that you could re-injure that hamstring later in the year, or coming out of the gate, he's probably going to get the majority of those carries with Jaylen Warren healing up, and we might see another tweak, and it could be game over, and Najee could just be a league winner. So, again, I definitely see the merit in him in saying too low, but again, everybody's not going to spend that much money on running back. It's just it's just how it's going to happen. So yeah, I'll take it at just right. But yeah, again, one of those that's just right, but also a steal.
Right, a steal of the draft is what we like to call it as. All right, Mark, I'm going to kick it back over to you. We're going back to Kansas City once again.
We are. Now you've been playing along at home. You've been playing along at home. I've had my too low. I've had my just right. So Isiah Pacheco he's too high. Yeah. So he's $43 on one QB, and $25 in Superflex. Or did I put that backwards? No, I'm looking at something else. All right, so $43 in one QB, $35 in Superflex. Again, that's where guys like Jahmyr Gibbs are going. And I'm just, and again, this is back for the past couple, or the past month, back to July 20th is where I did my data. Really, I kind of just think, for $43, you could have a lot of nice receivers. You can get AJ Brown for cheaper. You can get Puka for cheaper a lot of the time. You know how I feel about those guys. There are a lot of running backs that are in that same tier that, again, are going for a little bit lower, and I don't, really see the need to pay up for a guy like Pacheco. He's not at Saquon level. He's not at Kyron playing level. He's a 7th round running back, and there's always a chance that because he's just got so much opportunity, but I don't necessarily know if that's really there, and that they're just going to give that opportunity to a 7th rounder who hasn't really stayed on the field as a forever player where he's not getting injured or coming out of the game. So he's a hard runner. I can't imagine that they're going to want to overdo it with him. You know what I mean? Like he's definitely a big weapon for their offense, and he'll have great games. But is he like the league winner that he that he's kind of being billed as? I don't really see it.
Adam, I'll kick it over to you. Do you think we're too high on Isiah Pacheco right now?
The only pushback that I'll give about Pacheco is that I don't see anyone on their roster that's really going to take a lot of touches away from him. Clyde Edwards-Helaire, his future's kind of up in the air right now. He's recovering from some mental health issues. They've got their Carson Steele, the guy who's looked really good in preseason, although he's been more of like a kind of a halfback, tight end. Although he has had some nice rushes as well in the preseason. So I think the opportunity will be there for Pacheco. But as someone who likes to go zero RB, I'm not going to end up spending the amount of money that you're going to need to pay for him. But I do think the opportunity will be there for him because I just don't think there's going to be anyone there to take a lot of those rushing opportunities away from him. And again, like in Kansas City, we've kind of said it all year. You just want to try to invest in players whose offenses are really strong, and obviously we know Kansas City's really is. The only knock that I'll give with Pacheco is I'm not sure how much he's really going to be involved in the passing game. Like catching passes really hasn't been his MO. He just doesn't catch a lot of passes, even though he has that ability. But now they've got, Xavier Worthy, Rashee Rice, Kelsey. They just signed, Juju Smith-Schuster. So I'm just not sure Pacheco is going to be catching a lot of passes. That's the only thing.
Right. So like that's where like the upside part of it kind of loses its luster for me.
Yep.
And that's, the other thing. So like last year they didn't, Pacheco did take on some of that, but it also, I mean, like CEH was hurt, I believe, most of the year last year. They didn't have McKinnon like they had the year before. And both of those guys the year previous, when Isiah Pacheco had sort of just come onto the league, they were both kind of platooning the pass catching work. So with a veteran like CEH, I could see him taking a lot of the pass catching. I could, again, with Pacheco having such low draft capital. And again, I think he's more of that bruiser, the beat 'em up rushing running back, not your pass catching guy. I could definitely see like a Carson Steele, CEH platoon on that. So it's hard for me to really say. I do agree that it really looks like he's got most of it, and like I'll take him mostly in like redraft leagues when he falls in a nice spot. But I'm me, I'm not paying for running backs. So it's hard for me to want to spend on that.
So Ryan,
You're on mute, Ryan.
See, now I'm screwing up. So here we go. You gotta end on a low note, on a high show. So no, like everything you guys are saying, I agree with about the adding of pass catchers, the drafting of Xavier Worthy, but like I feel like this is just right. Like he's coming up in rankings because last season it was just Travis Kelce, and it was really no one else there besides Rashee Rice. They were relying too much on a rookie. They bring in Marquise Brown. Yes, he's down right now, but they also drafted Xavier Worthy. So they're trying to open up the passing game. What does the passing game do? It opens up the running game. I think it's going to benefit him, Isiah Pacheco, more than it will disadvantage to him. Yeah, does he get the targets? No, not really. I mean, he had at most 7 targets last year, but he also can do a lot with little bit of targets he gets. One game he had 3 targets, 3 receptions. I was able to turn that into 24.8 fantasy points, which was good for number 6 on the week because he had 158 total yards. So, and the red zone opportunities that he gets quite a few. Like I feel like we don't look at the red zone carries that he gets. You look at the total red zone carries he gets. He was averaging at least 4 a game. So if he gets 4 or 5 red zone carries a game, the touchdowns will eventually fall in. So I'm all in on it, especially at that price. And I see why the price is that high, because I feel like he can return that type of value based on that cost.
So if I can just make one more little push here.
Yeah.
Pacheco is really like the most expensive Kansas City option right now. So at least in auctions, he's the most expensive option in Kansas City. We see the history of that prolific passing attack, dating back to Tyreek Hill, and obviously it's sort of falling off with the cover two renaissance, stopping guys like Burrow and Mahomes to try and just put a hat on everything. But I think also now with that pass catching core, it takes a lot of pressure off. They're great at every level at receiver, right? Like Hollywood Brown, Xavier Worthy, whichever one is a 3 is still a great 3, right?
Uh-huh.
Like there's still a great 3. Rashee Rice or Travis Kelce, one of them is going to be the 1, one of them is going to be the 2. So you've really got 4 pass catchers that it's going to be hard to sort of tell exactly where it goes all the time. But, even though it's a different position, Pacheco, I think, is still going to be caught up in that where it's going to come from a lot of different places each week. But I still think it's going to be like a prolific offense, and can be multiple and can be deceptive. So we really aren't going to know where it's going to go, like on a week-to-week basis, because their offense is so good that they can literally do whatever they want. They just look at how weak you are at one thing, and they'll just exploit that for the week, right? Like that's how I feel like it's going to go a lot of the time. So you're going to have the boom games, you're going to have the bust games from all of them. But with that being said, him being the highest price one, I'm willing to hang back and click Rashee Rice, click Kelce, because he's still, he's starting to move up into the second, early third, second now, so he's getting a little better. But I think I'm fine just hanging back and taking other Chiefs. And really, this is why like Mahomes is my QB1.
QB1. I get it. And then we'll wrap up with one of my favorite two low players, because to be honest with you guys, he wasn't even on the list. As I was trying to find him, I kept searching. I was like refreshing. I'm like, there's got to be something wrong here because I can't find him. And then I went to Superflex and I found him. And I was like, that's still too low, but I'm more than happy to take it. And that's Bryce Young. We can't forget, how bad of a season he had last year. But he had no one really to throw to. He had no receivers, no core around him. This season, he gets Dave Canales. They get Deontay Johnson. He was, 6 for 8, 70 yards and a touchdown in his first preseason game. Definitely looked a lot better, a lot cleaner. I feel like this is the up and up right now for Bryce Young, and this is the lowest you're going to get him. So in one QB, absolutely free. Like, he was not drafted in any one QB leagues. In Superflex, $4 at QB 25. So a solid QB3, in my opinion, I think you get as a bench fodder. And with the way that team's starting to look and trying to piece it together, I mean, they drafted Jatavian Sanders. Sure, he's a rookie tight end. We know also how rookie tight ends can take time to develop because it's a harder position to develop. But I feel like that's just way too low right now on Bryce Young. Like, I feel like we're giving up. It's almost like my Baker Mayfield take. And look at Baker Mayfield now. He's a $100 million man. Mark, are we too high? Or are we all too low on Bryce Young?
So I don't think there's anything wrong with having Bryce Young on your bench, but he wouldn't be, especially at the prices that QBs come off in one quarterback. I just don't think he's going to be somebody that I'm clicking the button to be my starter. Like, I don't, especially if he's going as quarterback 25, I have a hard time believing that in a 12-team league that even 20 quarterbacks are going to be rostered, or the 24 ahead of him are going to be rostered. And I'm not saying that he can't obviously outproduce that. So if you believe in him, get him, making him your backup quarterback. But I think you're just going to look at the firepower. At the end of the day, week 1, are you going to want to start Bryce Young over, say, like your $2 Tua, or it's Jaden Daniels doesn't go for $2 anymore, I don't think, at least not in competitive auctions. But your $2, you can get Bryce Purdy or Brock Purdy for like $2 sometimes, or you know what I mean? Like, you can get guys at that, Trevor Lawrence for $2, and so Like as much as I think that like Bryce Young can have a bounce back season, even a guy like Trevor Lawrence or even Justin Herbert, like they're all just as cheap, and I feel like pedigree and just like time in the league and showing that they've been capable makes them like a safer bet for me in one QB specifically. But I do think you're right that he's definitely too low in super flex. He should be one of your QB2 like platoon, and honestly he might be your QB2 for you more weeks than not.
Exactly. I love it. Adam, how do you feel about him, Bryce Young? You think we also
Yeah.
too low, especially in super flex?
Yeah, in Superflex, absolutely. And I think Mark said it really well. If you can get him as your QB2, great. If you happen to be able to, sneak him for your QB3, that's even better. I think he's going to have a bounce back here under Dave Canales. And also, Carolina just happens to have one of the easiest schedules, not just for quarterbacks, but also for the wide receivers, which I think is also really going to help. They got Johnson, like you said. They still have Adam Thielen. Jonathan Brooks is starting out on the pup, so he's going to miss the first, 4 weeks of the season. But they've got Chuba Hubbard, and Brooks will be back. Later in the year, he could end up being a league winner on his own if he ends up performing to the level that a lot of people think that he can. So yeah, in Superflex, $4 is your QB2, possibly QB3. Yeah, that's absolutely too low for Bryce Young.
All right. I see it. You guys see it too. We're all too low on Bryce Young. So put that little star next to him in one QB. You never know when you might need him as your bye-week replacement. Super flex. Try to take him at the end of your draft. No one takes him because he is going way too cheap or too low, as we like to say. All right, guys. That's the show. We're going to wrap it up here with a Q&A. We actually have a question. Comes from Peter Nova at Supernova 38. He's one of our writers over at Face Off Sports Network. And this is actually a great question because I never thought about it until he actually asked that question. He said, since your first show to now, who's a player you have risen on the most? Adam, I'll kick it off to you. What's one player you've risen on the most?
I think the player I think the player that has risen the most for me, and this might seem a little silly, is Xavier Worthy. I wasn't super high on him coming out of the draft, and basically because receivers who have run like super fast at the combine have historically not panned out. And if you don't believe me, I will, remember just John Ross and Henry Ruggs, just to name a few. But after seeing Worthy play in the preseason has really made me come around on him. His route running is totally legit to go along with his blazing speed, and having one of the greatest quarterbacks ever throwing you and one of the greatest coaches ever to do it, Andy Reid, doesn't hurt either. So he's a guy that since this whole process has started, I'm a lot higher on than I was before at the start of the year.
Nice. Mark, how about you? Who's one player you've risen on this season?
I don't know if it's of any consequence because I still don't end up getting him, but I have risen a little bit on Malik Neighbors, and I'm willing to put him into that area in that low 20s or so that I can maybe still be bidding on him and not be so scared to get him. You know what I mean? But I'm usually pretty hesitant on all rookies in general. You know me, unless it's like a stud running back or something like that. But I think, there's definitely been some buzz on him. I still am and this is me saying this as what should technically be considered a Giants fan. I still really just don't believe that this offense, the line and Daniel Jones specifically, are going to do enough in competitive games to really get him to his ceiling. So there's that, but again, he's moved up that I'm willing to say he is talented enough to transcend that if the situation breaks right.
Nice. Yeah, and one player I'm risen on the most is Deontay Johnson. I hated him a lot, especially this season, seeing when he was at the Steelers. But seeing him go to Carolina, I'm like, man, does a fresh restart, is that what's really needed? and then seeing like if I believe in Bryce Young, I got to believe in the receiver. And Deontay Johnson, I feel like is going to be that receiver again, who's that PPR machine that we're all going to love, who we'll be able to draft as our 4th or 5th wide receiver. Is going to put up wide receiver 3 numbers. So definitely one big riser there I have. And then
I just got to throw in another one because I thought of a better one for me. I'm going to take James Conner. James Conner is the one for me. He's one of those guys, and again, like for the most part, running backs in general, like as we get closer to September, I am more and more willing to push running backs up my draft board. And James Conner is one of those guys that he's healthy to start the season. He's not going to be playing in any. He's not playing in any preseason games. He's going to be their starter right out of the gate. So he get a nice hot start for you. He's still very cheap. And I think he can, he's a really nice, again, a nice RB1 candidate for your 0 RB team.
Mm-hmm. Nice. And wrap up that question, his second part of the question was, who's one player that you're not as high on as you once were? Mark, I'll kick that one off to you. Do you have a good one right now to go with? Or do you want to kick it off to Adam real quick while you think of it?
Not as hot. Yeah, let's go with Adam. Go ahead, Adam, if you've got one.
Adam,
yeah,
do you have one that you're not as high on?
Yeah, the player that I'm probably down on the most as of late is probably Zamir White. And everyone kind of fell into the Alexander Madison trap last season, myself included. I absolutely fell into that trap. And I'm worried that White could kind of be that guy this year. And not for nothing, but White and Madison are now teammates in Las Vegas. And they're likely to be in some sort of timeshare along with the rookie Dylan Labe. And I think that White, he offers very little in the pass catching department. And I also think that the Raiders are going to struggle to score a lot of points this season, which makes White even less appealing to me than he was earlier on in the year.
Yeah, totally agree. Yeah, he was on one of my lists. I was glad I put down multiple ones. So, Mark, I'll kick it back to you. Do you have one yet, or you want me to go with mine?
Mainly, mine is mainly Anthony Richardson, not because I don't think he's talented and I don't think he belongs in the exact slot that he's in, as far as like order, if you were doing a snake draft. But I also don't necessarily I feel like he's right at the price that we're saying like, okay, now this is like a sure thing. He's the guy, who can do it for you. So it's in one quarterback, it's not as bad because he does fall from time to time. But like in Superflex, he might as well be Josh Allen, right? Like he's like so it's just that's for like I like his talent, but I just don't like his price because it's still. You know what I mean? Like it's the difference between it's just the odds of the bet, right? Like he's a great steal. That's the reason why like we love Jaden Reed, we love Kyler Murray, and now that they're basically getting the same treatment as Anthony Richardson as they make their way up the draft board, which is that like once they hit cost, the reason that they were appealing is because they're like that last guy and they're so much cheaper. Now they're just like not that much cheaper. So it's still like you're taking on a lot of the risk without the actual like safety net.
Yeah, no, I could see that for sure. And it's kind of funny because, you picked an Indianapolis Colt and I'm also picking an Indianapolis Colt on this one. And I'm going with one of his pass catchers, and that's Michael Pittman. Is like, because Pittman's stats were all based on Gardner Minshew last year, basically. And if you look at his game log with Anthony Richardson, he wasn't really that great. It was kind of actually almost mediocre bad. I mean, yeah, he had 12 targets, 11 targets, but like the yardage just wasn't there. And like he only had 3 games over 100 yards last season. And that was just 105 yards. And if we think Anthony Richardson's going to take the next step, I hope he does. But I just don't see 156 targets coming to Michael Pittman again. I see it dropping back down to 120-ish range, which would be a career low for him, considering he was 141 in 2022 and 129 in 2021. But it's also suffered to score more than 6 touchdowns in one season. And last time he did that was in 2021. And last 2 seasons, it's only been 4. So, I mean, we're looking at 4 touchdown season again, and most people are taking him as a wide receiver 1, high end wide receiver 2. I just don't see the repeatability of it happening. So he's one player I'm definitely dropping on just for that reason alone.
Yeah, I think it shouldn't be lost on anyone that like a lot of the reason that everything was deployed the way it was beyond Richardson getting hurt was like that Jonathan Taylor was holding out and pretty much not willing to play for the opening part of the season. And you look, and I'm going back to Anthony Richardson now, but like you look at Anthony Richardson, in 2 games and change has like 4 rushing touchdowns, and that looks really super impressive. And I think he had like 1 nice passing touchdown there, or that definitely like made all the highlights and makes you really happy and excited for this team. But when you think about it from the perspective of like if you're looking at a guy like Lamar, and the Ravens, they have a mobile quarterback and they have a strong rushing attack, right? And I feel like that's kind of what the core and base of this Colts offense is and has always been. Before they had a rushing quarterback, now they also have a rushing quarterback. And I kind of just think we're going to see a lot more of that. But you know what? To argue the other side of the point for a second, Ryan, like you could see him be a target funnel because he's like the one guy. I don't know. I don't know how well Adonai Mitchell's gonna end up working out. Like we really don't know. He's a late enough rookie that like it could go just like any number of different ways.
Yeah.
But if he's like not reliable, then maybe it's him. Maybe it ends up being Taylor, Richardson, Pittman, and like that's it. In which case Pittman would be pretty nice. But I still think he's there. That the whole offense is going to have that thing that you get with the Ravens sometimes, where it's like you don't know where you still don't really know where it comes from, because really the rushing attack is so heavy involved that it kind of just like it kind of flattens all the receiver numbers over.
All right. That's it, guys. That's the show. It wraps up the 2024 kickoff season of Absolute Auction. Any final words, guys, before we call it a season?
I just again want to say, thank you to all their supporters and subscribers, everyone that, reached out on Twitter and, connected with us. Super appreciative. It was a lot of fun doing this. And I think we're going to have a fantastic offseason and looking forward to what we got in store next season.
And like I said before, or we all said before, if you have auction questions, like for your auction draft coming up, we reach out on Twitter, DM us. We are absolutely more than willing to take the time and help you through it. So at @RyanMiner_FFB for Ryan, at AllExAuctions for Adam, at Primetime Mock for myself. And the other thing with regards to that, though, is, I've got my big auctions coming up this weekend and like through the end of until the season kicks off. So if you do want to reach out, make sure it's like tomorrow and like at least like by Thursday. So we at least know what to expect, because we're all in that last minute grind for all of our big auctions too. But we still do want to be dedicated to you and help you guys out.
Absolutely. All right, guys. I'm going to wrap it up here. For Adam, for Mark, I'm Ryan. This is the Absolute Auction Podcast. We'll see you guys later.
Listener League on Monday.
Yeah.